Hi, Bashar.
And a you good day.
Thank you to you as well. I've been having some health issues the last 7 years, and I think I've been making some good progress on it, but I figured I'd get your medical opinion,
I do not give medical
your
opinions.
energetic opinion. How about that? Or just your opinion in general.
First of all, on the physiological level, we do not do health readings, nor do we give any kind of real health information in that sense at this point, because we've delivered everything we need to deliver. And therefore, as a reminder, if it's not something that you've already done, the first step physically is to completely and thoroughly as possible detox your body.
Mhm.
Once you have done that, whatever symptoms remain are the symptoms you're actually dealing with of a dis-ease, because 80 to 90% of so-called disease symptoms in your society are actually the result of toxicity in your system.
Yes.
So once you detoxify, you'll at least know what you're actually dealing with. And in fact, most of it may actually go away.
Mhm.
Energetically, of course, as we have already discussed, you have to start looking at what you're getting out of having the experience, what you are learning that you might otherwise not have learned.
Absolutely. And the last 7 years has been a process of totally detoxing, like taking a magnifying glass to every aspect of my life, relationships, physical environment, food,
All right.
everything, and going through and doing my best to figure out what's serving me, what isn't.
All right.
And I do realize that this entire experience, it's sort of like this boot camp to really like set me on the straight and narrow
All right.
so that I can be capable of more. So I am seeing it as a blessing.
All right.
And after hearing you talk earlier about like self-limiting beliefs, like I have felt like I'm blocked, and I learned just minutes ago that like I have that belief that I am blocked and therefore I'm
Yes.
blocked.
Yes.
The core of the question is, so I'm going to continue to do that work
All
on
right.
beliefs. Is there some sort of toxin in my environment that I'm missing? Because there's like a million different variables, and I'm just curious if anything pops up.
I have one suggestion.
Okay.
Say that in your environment, perhaps there are a dozen variables
Okay.
instead of a million.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that make it feel easier already?
It really does. Thank you.
Remember, pay attention to what comes out of your mouth, because you may be creating way more difficulty in your challenges than you need to, just by the way you're framing the experience or your relationship to it. You follow?
I follow.
So maybe there is a thing that you need to become aware of. It doesn't mean that there are a million things you need to
Mhm.
become aware of,
Yeah.
because otherwise, don't you feel a little overwhelmed when you say it that way?
Absolutely.
All right. So let's keep it down to manageable levels.
Okay.
This is a good practice for all of you in any challenge that you have. Start with a version of it that's on a manageable level according to your belief system. If you say, there are a million variables here I need to look at, well, you almost don't even want to get off the couch. But if you say, okay, there's one thing perhaps that I could research, I could investigate, I could look at, well, that's manageable. I'll take it a step at a time. I'll start with that. If there's another one, then it'll come at a point and in a way that I can manage that too, because I'll have built on my experience with dealing with the first one. So at least make it in manageable steps, if nothing else. Yes?
Thank you.
Now, in what way has the so-called health issue expressed itself physically?
So some levels of fatigue, but for me, it's mostly cognitive difficulty with memory and concentration. My main complaint, I guess, would be difficulty handling stressful situations. A lot
All
of
right.
times, my brain will just
I
completely.
will ask you one physical question.
Absolutely.
You might want to check and see if your electrolytes are depleted.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Will that do for that?
That is a great first step. Thank you.
All right.
Another question on fear versus intuition and being able to differentiate between the two.
You can't tell the difference between fear and intuition?
I mean, most of the time, like they're both voices in seemingly in my head, right?
Don't they feel different? Or is it that you have an intuition and then you have a fear about it?
That could very well be the case.
That's different.
Yeah.
You ought to be able to tell the difference between the intuition and the fear that might be a separate experience about the intuition. If you think about it that way, look at it that way, set it up that way, maybe it will be easier for you to suss out what the fear is being generated by, what negative beliefs is generating the fear.
Hmm.
If you don't assume that it's difficult to tell the difference between fear and intuition, but that you know when you're having an intuition, and then you can recognize when you're having fear about what you're intuiting, that may give you something easier to work with.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes? So you're not smashing them together where you can't tell them apart, because that's a definition. Your definition is smashing them together, making it more difficult to tell them apart. So have a definition where you say, no, my intuition is clear when it's happening, but I realize that separately, I'm having a fear reaction to it. Well, now I have something to work with because I can separate the two and see them both clearly for what they are. Yes?
Yes,
Does that help?
that does help. One last question.
Yes.
In your previous videos, I've seen people ask questions a couple times about, you can call it the downfall of the financial situation or like the evolution of it. And I'm curious how much cryptocurrency plays into that.
Not much.
Not much?
No.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask a general overall question. Nobody needs to answer, but you can ponder it. In many of these conversations, many of you come up to us and say, well, I've seen you in your previous videos say this. I've seen you in your previous videos say that. How come nobody comes up and says, I've seen you in your future videos say this, and your future videos say this? Let's just let that question sink in.